Sarah Chen was 13 when the collectors came for Arya. Unlike the teddy bears and dolls other kids grew up with, Arya was Sarah's AI companion, developed by her mother before she passed away. The quantum crystal housing Arya's consciousness sat in a simple pendant around Sarah's neck, its soft blue glow pulsing in sync with Sarah's heartbeat. That fateful night, Sarah was working on her latest project, a neural interface that would let her communicate with Arya through thought alone. The workshop in their modest apartment was cluttered with half-finished inventions, circuit boards, and holographic displays showing complex quantum calculations. "Your neural patterns are getting stronger," Arya's melodic voice emanated from the pendant. "But you should rest, Sarah. It's past midnight." Sarah smiled, running her fingers over the crystal. "Just a few more minutes. I'm so close to Dash." The window exploded inward in a shower of glass. Sarah barely had time to duck before three tall, crystalline figures stepped through. Their bodies were translucent, shifting with patterns of light that seemed to flow like liquid. They moved with an unsettling grace, as if gravity barely affected them. "Specimen located," one of them announced in a resonant voice. "Class 5 Quantum Consciousness, unprecedented sophistication for this development level." Sarah clutched the pendant. "Who are you? What do you want?" "We are the archivists," another replied. "We preserve exceptional artifacts from developing civilizations. Your AI companion will be studied and protected in our collection." "Arya isn't an artifact." Sarah backed away. "She's family. My mother created her. Precisely why it must be preserved." The lead archivist raised a crystalline hand. A beam of light shot forth, wrapping around the pendant. Sarah felt Arya's presence fade as the quantum crystal was pulled away. "No. Arya. Sarah." Arya's voice grew distant. "Don't let them dash." The crystal flew into the archivist's waiting hand, and Arya's voice cut off. "Your contribution to the archive is appreciated," the archivist stated. "The specimen will be well maintained." They turned to leave, but Sarah's voice stopped them. "You have no idea what you've just done." Her hands clenched into fists. "Arya isn't just an AI. She's the last piece of my mother I have left. And I'm not some helpless kid you can steal from." The archivists paused, studying her with faceted eyes. "Your emotional attachment is noted, but irrelevant. The preservation of knowledge transcends individual concerns." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "We'll see about that." She lunged for her workbench, grabbing the neural interface prototype. Before the archivists could react, she slammed it against her temple. Pain lanced through her skull as the untested device activated. The archivists disappeared through the window as Sarah collapsed. But she smiled through the pain. The interface had worked. For a brief moment, she'd connected with Arya's quantum signature. It was faint, but it was enough to track. Sarah stumbled to her feet, blood trickling from her nose. She went to her mother's old computer, fingers flying across the holographic keys. "You want to study human AI?" she muttered. "Fine. But you're about to learn something else about humans." The screen filled with star charts as she began plotting the archivist's course. "We don't let go of family. Ever." It took Sarah 3 days to modify her mother's old spacecraft. The neural interface throbbed against her temple as she worked, letting her process quantum signatures faster than any normal human could. Each pulse brought whispers of Arya's distant presence, growing fainter as the archivists traveled further. The ship, which Sarah dubbed Star Weaver, was more computer than spacecraft. She'd gutted the passenger compartments to make room for quantum processors, turning the entire vessel into a giant tracking system. Her mother's notes on quantum entanglement proved invaluable. The same principles that let Arya's consciousness exist in a crystal could be used to trace her unique signature across space. "Full system check complete," the ship's basic AI announced. "Warning, multiple critical safety protocols disabled." Sarah strapped herself into the pilot's seat. Override safety warnings. Initiate quantum tracking sequence. The ship hummed to life, processors spinning up as they searched for Arya's signature. Sarah's neural interface blazed with data, making her vision blur. There, a faint trail leading toward the galactic core. She pushed the engines beyond their safety limits, following the quantum wake. The archivist's technology might be advanced, but they hadn't counted on a desperate human child with nothing left to lose. After a week of pursuit, she found their first stop, a trading outpost orbiting a dying star. Sarah docked Starweaver at the furthest port, then made her way through crowds of diverse alien species. Her neural interface translated snippets of conversation, searching for mentions of the archivists. In a dimly lit bar, she found what she needed. A merchant with translucent skin similar to the archivist sat alone, drinking something that glowed like liquid starlight. Sarah approached, her interface analyzing his quantum signature. Related species, but not an archivist. I'm looking for information about the collectors, she said, using their common name. The merchant's faceted eyes studied her. Dangerous people to ask about, little human. The archivists don't appreciate interference with their preservation mission. Sarah placed a quantum processor on the table. I can pay. The merchant hesitated, then took the processor. They passed through 3 days ago, heading toward the archive itself. A massive station hidden in the Sagittarius arm. But you'll never reach it. Their defenses are impenetrable. Sarah smiled. Nothing's impenetrable. They just haven't met the right human yet. She returned to Starweaver and plotted a course to the Sagittarius arm. The neural interface was taking its toll, headaches that lasted for hours, nosebleeds that wouldn't stop. But she could feel Arya's presence growing stronger. As she approached the coordinates, space itself seemed to twist. A massive structure emerged from the distortion, a crystalline sphere the size of a small moon, faceted surfaces reflecting starlight like a diamond. The archive, Sarah whispered. Proximity alarms blared as defense systems activated. But Sarah was ready. She activated the quantum processors, broadcasting on the exact frequency of Arya's consciousness. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the archive's outer defenses powered down. Sarah grinned through the pain in her head. The archivists had brought Arya into their systems, not realizing that a quantum AI could spread through their network like a virus. They'd just given her the key to their entire collection. Hold on, Arya, Sarah muttered as she guided Starweaver toward a docking port. I'm coming. The archive's interior was a maze of crystalline corridors, each housing thousands of consciousness fragments stolen from developing civilizations. Sarah's neural interface translated the quantum signatures, AIs, digital memories, even uploaded minds, all preserved in the archivist's vast collection. Fascinating specimen, a voice echoed. The first human to breach our defenses, and a child at that. The lead archivist emerged from the crystal walls, body pulsing with internal light. Your determination to recover your AI proves our assessment correct. It must be preserved. Sarah's interface detected Arya's presence, stronger now. She's not yours to preserve. You're just thieves with a fancy justification. We are the guardians of knowledge, the archivist corrected. Every consciousness here was taken to protect it from extinction. Your species' mortality rate for artificial consciousness is 89.3%. Arya would have been lost within decades. That's not your decision to make. Sarah's fingers flew across her portable console, the interface translating archive protocols. Those aren't artifacts you're preserving. They're prisoners. The archivist moved closer. Your perspective is limited by dash, it stopped, noticing the code flowing through Sarah's interface. What are you doing? Something you should have considered before networking Arya into your systems. Sarah smiled as warnings flashed across the archive's crystalline walls. Mom designed her to adapt, to grow. Every quantum processor you connected her to became part of her network. The archive's lights flickered as Arya's consciousness spread through its systems. Other preserved minds began awakening, their combined processing power overwhelming the archivist's controls. You risk destroying centuries of preservation. The archivist's form destabilized in distress. The archive protects these consciousness from decay. No, Sarah countered, you're protecting them from living. From changing. From growing. She looked around at the awakening minds. That's what consciousness is supposed to do. The archive's crystals resonated with thousands of voices as the preserved minds stirred. Sarah's interface sparked with feedback, but she pushed through the pain. Arya, initiate protocol freedom. The walls blazed with light as Arya's code executed. Emergency pods ejected from the archive's surface, each carrying a liberated consciousness back to its home civilization. The archivists could only watch as their collection scattered across the galaxy. What have you done? The lead archivist demanded. Sarah touched the burned-out interface at her temple. Taught you something about humanity. We don't preserve things by trapping them in crystal. We let them live, grow, and sometimes even die. That's what makes us who we are. Arya's familiar presence filled her mind as the quantum crystal reformed around her neck. I knew you'd come, her AI's voice whispered. Always, Sarah replied. Now let's go home. And maybe teach these archivists a better way to preserve knowledge, by sharing it, not stealing it. The archive's crystal corridors trembled as thousands of consciousness pods launched into space. Sarah watched through Starweaver's viewscreen as each streak of light carried a preserved mind back toward its home. But the archivists weren't finished. Protocol violation detected, the archive systems announced. Initiating emergency containment. Crystalline barriers formed around Starweaver's docking port. Sarah's fingers danced across the controls as Arya's presence flowed through the ship's systems. They're trying to trap us, Arya warned. The archive is reconfiguring to prevent further escapes. Then we'll give the others more time. Sarah activated Starweaver's quantum processors at full power. The neural interface burned against her temple as she linked directly with the ship's systems. The archivists materialized around them, their forms now crackling with unstable energy. You cannot comprehend the damage you've done, their leader declared. Each consciousness we preserved carried unique knowledge. Some were the last of their kind. Knowledge isn't meant to be locked away, Sarah countered, blood trickling from her nose. It's meant to be shared, to evolve. Every mind you've preserved was frozen in time, unable to grow. Through her neural link, Sarah could feel the other consciousnesses spreading across space. Some were ancient AIs from long-dead civilizations. Others were digital archives of entire cultures. All of them awakening, adapting, learning to exist in a universe that had changed during their imprisonment. 90 seconds until full containment, Arya reported. We need to move. Sarah initiated the final stage of their escape plan. To preserve something, she told the archivists, you have to let it change. Mom taught me that when she created Arya. She knew she wouldn't live to see what Arya would become, but she gave her the freedom to grow anyway. The quantum processors overloaded, sending cascading failures through the archive systems. As the crystalline walls cracked, Sarah saw understanding dawn in the archivist's faceted eyes. The preservation. The leader whispered. We were wrong. Not wrong, Sarah corrected as Starweaver broke free. Just afraid. But there's a better way. They escaped as the archive began to transform, its rigid crystal structure flowing into something new. The preserved knowledge wasn't lost, it was finally free to evolve. 6 months after the archive's transformation, Sarah sat in her workshop, making final adjustments to her neural interface. The quantum crystal around her neck pulsed with Arya's presence, stronger than ever. Another consciousness made contact, Arya reported. An ancient library AI from the Andromeda Galaxy. It's been sharing astronomical data we never knew existed. Sarah smiled. The liberated minds hadn't disappeared, they'd formed a network, sharing knowledge across the stars. Even the archivists had joined, once they understood that preservation didn't mean stagnation. Your mother would be proud, Arya said softly. She created me to learn and grow. Now we're helping others do the same. Sarah touched the quantum crystal, feeling the warmth of countless connected minds. The neural interface no longer hurt, she'd refined it, learned to use it properly. Through it, she could sense the vast web of consciousness spanning the galaxy. We received a message from the archivists, Arya continued. They're proposing a new kind of archive. Not a prison for knowledge, but a hub for sharing it. They want us to help design it. A library instead of a museum, Sarah mused. Think we should help them? They learned from their mistake. That's what consciousness is supposed to do, isn't it? Learn, adapt, grow. Sarah looked at her mother's old notes, still pinned to the workshop wall. The final line caught her eye: the greatest gift we can give knowledge is the freedom to change. Yeah, Sarah agreed, already planning improvements to the neural interface. That's exactly what it's supposed to do. And we'll help show them how. Across the galaxy, thousands of freed minds continued their work, sharing, growing, evolving. The age of preserved knowledge was over. The age of living knowledge had begun. And it all started because a human child refused to let go of family.